FHRP Protocols. What is FHRP? FHRP stands for First Hop Redundancy Protocol. A hop redundancy protocol uses a virtual IP and virtual MAC address to give redundancy to the gateway router inside the company's network. However, in order for this protocol to run effectively, there must be two or more routes that are used as a gateway router. Both the virtual MAC address and IP address will be used on the router. The virtual IP address must be used as the default gateway address. The routers will have different functions, one acting as a gateway router and the other as a standby router. This allows for transparent failover at the first hop IP router. Implementation of FHRP. There are three different options when considering implementation. These options are Hot Standby Router Protocol, HSRP, Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol, VRRP, Gateway Load Balancing Protocol, GLBP. Hot Standby Router Protocol. Hot Standard Router Protocol is a Cisco proprietary router redundancy protocol. This protocol is used to take various amounts of routers and forming them all to work cooperatively. It does this by causing all routers to act as a default router. The routers will all contain the same virtual MAC and IP address. Within this implementation, there are two router states, active router and standby router. This means that the active router will be sending and receiving packets from a given host within a company. There will only be one active router within this group of routers. The next option is a standby router. This means these all routers are all ready and prepared to be used in case the active router crashes. If a router crashes, router failover will occur. However, by using this protocol, it will prevent any of the hosts from being affected. Since all the routers use the same MAC and IP address, this will create redundancy. Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol is a vendor-neutral redundancy protocol that groups together physical routers. By grouping together the routers, you can create a single virtual router. Similar to HSRP, it assigns a virtual gateway and IP and MAC address on all of the physical routers. However, the primary difference is the preemption is enabled by default within VRRP. However, on the HSRP, you must configure the preemption manually. Within VRRP, there are two states, the master router and the backup router. Essentially, the master router is the default gateway of all the hosts in a company. The backup router is used in case the master router fails. And this is an example below. Gateway Load Balancing Protocol. Gateway Load Balancing Protocol takes the routers within a certain group and allows the routers to do load balancing. Load balancing is the process of effectively distributing incoming network traffic among a set of back-end computers. Sometimes this is referred to as a server farm or a server pool. In this protocol, all of the traffic comes through a default gateway IP. Then it does load balancing process of going to each router in the grouping. The GLBP uses the same states as SHRP. The pros of using FHRP. Number 1, network availability. FHRP protocol uses a backup router to eliminate redundancy. Since there is a backup router at all times, there is a much lower chance of the network being unavailable. Load balancing. Using GLBP, it provides load balancing of traffic across multiple routers. This distributes the network traffic and avoids overloading. Number 3, network flexibility. FHRP allows for virtual routers to be assigned IP addresses that are independent. This allows for a simpler network management. Number 4, easy implementation. They are easy to put into implementation, which allows it to be used for smaller or medium-sized organizations. Cons of using FHRP. Single port failure. Despite being very redundant, there is still the possibility of a single port failure. If some way every router within a given group is knocked offline, there will be a failure within the network. Bandwidth consumption. FHRP protocol can use a multicast between routers to communicate. All this communication can add bandwidth to a network, which can cause problems for a bandwidth-limited network. And this is a diagram showing that there is an active router here that is connecting and giving service to the switch and then to the three computers. But if this active router was happened to go down, the next would be the standby router, which would replace it and use the same functions. Here's a chart showing HHRP, VRRP, GLBP. Shows what it's created by: Cisco Open Standard, Cisco, the year, the multicast IP, the the routers. So there's one active, one passive, one active and one passive, and there's several active physical routers. The virtual and MAC IP address, they both have one virtual MAC and IP address. Same with VRRP, but GLP uses one virtual IP address and a different virtual MAC address for each router. And this is the response times.